All going.
Alrighty.
Alrighty. Who are we waiting for? We're waiting for Voice and who else?
Dunn.
Dunn. All right. Well, they'll get around when they're ready. But anyway, good afternoon, folks. Welcome to another edition of Smudcast. This is number 181, I believe. Let me just check the number. 181. The MCU is trash, and here's why. Part 3 conclusion. This is from JustTheFacts. This is our third and final video from JustTheFacts. If you don't remember the previous ones, they were short-lived, but a lot to talk about. Lots of things to argue over. I'm not a fan of the MCU. I haven't watched 80% of them, but I know they're attractive. I know why they work. I know some of the plots. I know some of the characters, and even I could pick apart some of his arguments. So
yeah, I think I've pretty much seen. I think the only thing I haven't seen is Captain Marvel. I think.
Right.
I've seen everything else.
You kind of really don't need it.
Yeah, it was like before Endgame came out. It was like, oh, it's really important, and then it really wasn't.
It isn't, and that's something that they, at least from my experience, they definitely use that to their advantage. It's like it's like the whole logic of it comes out right before Avengers Endgame. It has to be important, and it really wasn't. And it still made $1 billion just because it's in the MCU. But that's not a reason to disparage the MCU in any way. It's just they abused that notion to make it sell.
Yeah. But basically, all you needed to know going into Endgame is that Captain Marvel is a powerful character that exists. But that's pretty much all you really need to know.
There are plenty of memes and plenty of clips on YouTube to watch to get enough understanding of who these characters are, what they do, what their powers are, where they come from. And I think every character needs an intro movie, or even the DC does that. The DCU does that with Aquaman and Wonder Woman. So it's not unheard of to just have a film about the character, and then they show the character in a connected storyline later on. And how that works is... Batman v Superman wasn't the greatest example. It could have worked fantastically, but it's yeah.
It is, from my experience, it's more so the fact that they had barely anything building up to that kind of conflict. If this were, let's say, as an example, let's say if this were near the end of the DC animated universe and they did this plot, then it would have made a lot of sense because you have years upon years of these two characters having different ideologies, different ways of handling a situation, and it would come to a boiling point eventually, but you at least have a lot of material to work off of before they get into that conflict. In the extended universe, it was just, we just wanted to compete with Civil War. And it backfired.
Yeah, you really don't get that sense of ideological difference in Batman v Superman, where as opposed to Civil War, where it's actually on principle. What are their on principle? Should these accords exist? Is that a good idea? It's actually fundamental disagreements on actual values rather than this really contrived way that they make them oppose each other. And
that's interesting because the first 10 minutes of Batman v Superman I thought were great. It's this is perfect setup. There's Batman. He's pissed off that he nearly destroyed the city and his business is down. Some bunch of people died. That's a good reason to get angry. And then it just flounders for an hour, and you're like, "What is going on in this movie?"
Yeah, if that same scene had been, if Batman v Superman was instead a solo Batman movie, and that scene was put there at the start of that Batman movie, that would have at least have been a little bit more setup than what we actually got.
If it was more
and
focused,
then do the versus movie.
Yeah. I mean,
would have been at least something.
Even in the comics, I'm not really a DC fan. I just kind of like Batman standalone things, but I wouldn't really say I'm a DC fan per se, because I just want to see the Batman stuff. I just want to see his stories, and then I'm not really interested in much else, to be honest.
I can definitely see where you're coming from with that. Yeah.
One thing that you ever see that I feel like you don't really get the impression of in the the movies or even the animated series is he doesn't really feel like a detective. You know, you sort of hear that he's supposed to be a detective, but you don't really he doesn't really feel like a detective character, that's why I really like the Long Halloween storyline, because he actually feels like a detective in that, you know.
And there's also a lot of other adaptations that really show that side of him as well. On top of what everyone knows him for, it's like I mentioned it before, but it's like the Arkham games definitely show the detective side, and also the animated series.
Yeah,
and it's like I bring it up a lot, but I don't care that those are really good versions of the character that do show all the aspects of what makes Batman what he is.
The roots in almost the Shadow character, almost kind of similar vibe, I would say.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is going to be an 8.5-minute video, and I've already seen a few minutes, so we know this guy's style. We know how he's going to go. JustTheFacts, very angry fellow about people who like Marvel, but you know that's normal. You could like things and dislike things, get angry at people. That's cool. Just have good arguments. Yeah. That's all we ask for is good arguments. So.
And then when your arguments are crap, we will call you out because your arguments are built on a foundation of bubblegum and bullcrap.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Hey, Dunn, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going? Sorry I'm a little bit late, but
no problem, sir.
Glad to be here.
Alrighty. All right, this is going to be only 8.5 minutes, so it shouldn't take too much time. If we have some time left over, we might do another one, but, you know, this is good enough for right now. So, everyone in the watch together, how you doing? Okay. Everyone in there?
Pew.
Seems like we're all here.
Alrighty, let's get started.
I to think of what to focus on for my last video on why the MCU is terrible. Consider what we've already proven in the previous two.
Proven?
Yeah, I was about to say proven. What exactly have you proven, good sir? Other than the fact that you hate the movies and love the comics like a fanboy.
We've proven it.
Yeah, we've proven that. Yeah. What have you proven?
He said one thing negative about the comics, I think.
Yeah, but it's to show more negatives for the movies.
No, I think he said something negative about the comics at one point, though. I'm pretty sure. Like, I'm pretty sure he said, like, that's like the source material. So, like, he said in a this is bad, but that's what the source material's like as well. There was a line in one of the videos, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. Well,
all right.
Honestly, trying to compare the source material of the Infinity Gauntlet is almost impossible to the movies. There's very little overlap.
Yeah, they're so different.
As a big Marvel fan and a big MCU fan, I would say that it is entirely impossible from how different the two versions are.
Yeah. And you can like both for what they are, but to compare them is just not even a good idea. So
yeah, in the case of the MCU, you really have to work your ass off to compare at least the littlest of things to the source material because of how many changes there are.
I mean, it's also weird because, like, I mean, in comics, even without changing mediums, there's so many different versions of characters anyway.
Exactly.
Well, there's entire characters that don't even show up, and the plots aren't even the same. So it's like it may as well just be two different stories that happen to have similar sounding characters. So.
Which they are. After a certain point in the MCU's existence, they are. Yeah. So.
All right.
Characters of the Amy, and they failed to live up to their potential.
Oh, okay. So first off, I never understood the argument that characters are near identical. I just can't. I can't see.
That's factually wrong.
Yeah, I can't.
It's almost like saying like any character that undergoes the hero's journey is identical. Like they're all just the same if they fit in that thing. Like they're just identical. There's no differences in characters.
Yeah, to say that just because they have a hero's journey makes them all identical. That in itself, first off, is a logical fallacy. Because in fiction, obviously. Common sense. In fiction, you can do whatever the fuck you want. And everyone is going to do something differently. So just because one thing is the same across all of them doesn't mean they're the same.
Well, I'm trying to look at, like, let's say Doctor Strange, Tony Stark, and Peter Parker. All of them are really smart. Some of them are cocky, and then they go from being like really high up in the sky, and they come crashing down. And they become humble, and they have an arc, and they learn to grow. And that's a common hero's journey. But the character of Peter Parker, in comparison to Tony Stark, is very, very different. So I don't know how we can compare them aside from some of their skills and ability, like their interests.
I think the lessons that they learn in the movie are very different. Like Peter Parker's learning to, like he's learning to not compare himself to Tony, kind of like seems to be sort of a running theme in the MCU Spider-Man movies. Whereas, like, I guess what would you say, like, Tony's arc is, like, caring more about other people as opposed to just about himself, or caring more about people than material possessions to some extent?
In the first Iron Man film, it was pretty much him learning that what he's been doing in his business has been having real world effects. And he's learned to, like, he finally has a character he can relate to from his dad's friend, scientist buddy. And they sort of, hit it off. Like, he learns what business has been and what it causes in the Middle East or wherever he is. So that was part of his waking up. And then we see a lot more growth in Iron Man 3, even though it's not the greatest film. But
it's very bad. It's easily one of the worst.
Right. So he does change and make a lot of...
They'll say Iron Man 2 is worse.
I know. It's kind of a toss-up between those two. But we see him make changes and choices that affect the story, which don't make too much sense, but they still make choices compared to Peter Parker. Compared to other characters. So, yes, they're all brilliant. They're all scientists. They're all leading men, but drastically different arcs. So that's just point number one. Point two. You could say this about every frickin' movie that came from a book. I can say that about The Princess Bride. I love the movie. When I read the books, I love the books even more because it's so much more content and it's so much more interesting than what you get on the screen.
So that brings up actually a Studio C skit that I watched a long time ago called the Teddy's Story Joint, where basically George Lucas and J.K. Rowling both walk into a bar and say, I'll have a protagonist, white male, flying, super whiny. That's what George Lucas says. And then J.K. Rowling says, I'll have what he's having.
Yeah.
And then she asks, can I have a little object with the Dark Lord's soul in it? Yeah, sorry, we sold our last one to Mr. Tolkien.
Oh.
I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah. So far, he has characters near identical, in which they aren't, and now he goes to source material, which for most of them is a flat out lie. Most of them in the MCU are written just better enough than the comic source
most of the
to justify it.
Like most of the characters they chose, but it was because they didn't have, at the time when they started, they didn't have like X-Men or Spider-Man. That decision also goes all the way back to the 90s when they had to go bankrupt and they had to merge with Toy Biz to come out of that. But they sold their best characters first, basically.
Exactly.
So characters like Iron Man, it wasn't very popular. Like it wasn't that
Iron Man
like
very.
They were definitely recognizable, at least within the comic book space. But they weren't like major pop culture icons like X-Men and Spider-Man were at that point.
Because they didn't have there was like Iron Man and like Hulk like animated series, but like nowhere near.
They had a presence. They had plenty of presence in entertainment, but they didn't have nearly the popularity of the others.
But like compared to the popularity just from like the X-Men animated series in the 90s and the Spider-Man series in the 90s as well, like they just sort of I would say
they don't compare.
Exploded the popularity of both of those.
Exactly.
And I think the comics just weren't as good. I don't know if that's the hot take. I don't think the Iron Man comics were that good at the time.
It was. I mean, you can just distill that down to it was the 90s.
Yeah. But I don't think, like, if you're talking about the actual source material from the very first comics, I think the characters in the MCU are better in a lot of cases, probably most cases. You know,
Agreed.
like,
Yeah.
possibly to the exception of Spider-Man now that he's in the MCU.
Hulk. I would say Hulk is less good in the MCU than he is in the comics.
But then again, as we've stated before, that's mainly because of like the split
that's
ownership
right,
between
bullcrap.
them and Universal.
That's mainly rights bullcrap and Universal being dicks.
Right.
Yep.
So, anyway,
It's like, and even with Disney behind them, they've yet to dare to buy Hulk back entirely, along with the Submariner. But that's a whole other discussion.
So in regards to individual characters, we can definitely say, well, yeah, they're obviously a lot more interesting and robust in the comics because you have dozens and dozens of years of variations of the characters being expressed in multiple plots. But I would always look to the Infinity War or the Infinity Gauntlet War in the comics and say you can't even compare that to some characters in the MCU Infinity Gauntlet War because some of them don't even exist. Like Adam Warlock, he's nowhere to be found. So that's
that is definitely a case where they were able to find a way to take an essential part of the original story, and since it wasn't even conceived yet, maybe a little bit in Guardians too, but they were able to find a way to make it work without him.
That's true. I mean, that's fine for streamlining a story.
And also, like, just some of his like things about like just Thanos hams it up. I'm just like, that is factually wrong.
That is entirely wrong.
But you get it for the sake of the film. You get it because that's what they're catering to. There is some comedy in these shows. There is some action and love.
He's not funny, actually.
No, he's not.
Actually dead serious.
Yeah, he is very down to business, no nonsense. And just with Infinity War, the movie, you can very clearly tell that he's taken enough shit from all these superheroes and has decided to take action himself and will stop anyone in his way from achieving his goals.
Yeah, like he's not very. He's probably the least quippy character in the MCU. Really, I mean, I can't really think of a quip
straight up
from Thanos. Like how can you say he's hamming it up in the bit, like the part where he's basically telling what is it, where he has Gamora and he's like
when he gets the Reality Stone, right?
Our Lord, yeah. Like that's such a good scene.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
All right, let's keep going. Here's a super chat from Jack Catlin. Interesting. Hey, Smud, does naming a book's title after the thing that gives the antagonist its powers work literally? So I'm assuming you're talking about the Infinity Gauntlet, like LOTR, but this only has a small role. Well, when you have a title of a book, what you want to do with your title is have it be a window to the rest of the book, to give someone like not a taste, but sort of a little view into what the book's going to be about. So when you have a book titled Spider-Man, and it's a comic book, and you have Spider-Man on the cover, it might be a good idea to have someone mention Spider-Man or talk about Spider-Man or have Spider-Man do something in that book just because it's the title. That's always a good idea. If you're talking about literally the powers, like the magic of the evil villain as the title, if that is the actual focus of the book, then why not? Sure. So it really depends on what you want to do with your story. Comic books, it's visual, so you have to show the powers and the villain doing the thing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like with Lord of the Ring, no, that could have been called The Battle of Middle-earth. That could have been called lots of other things, because the book is so big.
I feel like that doesn't communicate as much as Lord of the Rings. I feel like that there's so much about the story that's communicated,
right? But
just from that,
it's a war game.
Well, maybe at least as a subtitle, Lord of the Rings: The Battle for Middle-earth.
I guess
at least for that one,
right? Because
and also in terms of sorry, go ahead. Sorry,
there's an anime this is what my argument I make is Princess Mononoke, right? That's a very well-known anime that came out in the 90s. I would have rather have called that movie the Curse of the Boar King, because that's what the whole plot was. It's about this curse that gets bestowed on this kid. He has to go cure it, and he has to go kill the Boar King to get rid of it, or whatever the intricacies of that curse was. Princess Mononoke was a secondary character. She was definitely involved with the main character, but she was almost backseat to him most of the time. And she only gets introduced halfway.
I would agree with that point, yeah.
So, I think there is a trade-off though between like meaning and just being iconic. Yeah, there's a trade-off between having something actually tell you that much and having something just be, I guess, like almost catchy.
Oh yeah, I get that.
That's the right term, like marketable.
Look at Akira. Akira is about a guy and his friend. One of them has these splitting headaches. The other one's part of a biker gang. And he ends up becoming this crazy telekinetic god. You wouldn't call that my friend who took so many drugs, now he's a telekinetic god. Like, that wouldn't really work too well. So you need to have something a bit more catchy. So I get that idea. And the cover of Akira is always, Tetsuo? Tetsuo with the bike, yeah. So, you can't just make up a title these days, like what you see.
Wait, hang on. Which one's Tetsuo? Tetsuo is the one that turns into the fucking
Kaneda and Tetsuo are the two guys. Yeah.
Kaneda is the one with the bike, right?
Right.
Yeah. And in terms of like naming, going back to the movies, naming it after what it's about, and it's like if you look at the scope of the story told up to that point, Infinity War and Endgame most definitely earned those subtitles. The Infinity War, which is what the entirety of the MCU up to that point, almost all of it was about. It's like the war for the Infinity Stones, pretty much.
Right.
And Endgame, which speaks for itself.
So when we say what something is about, I refer to theme. But for titles, I mean, you can get a little fancy and creative, but it's best to be as clear as possible. Get to the point. Don't use too many words. And
I think it's good to bring up imagery. I think that's why, like, another reason why Lord of the Rings works so well is that, like, it's much more interesting and memorable to think of rings, to like visualize rings when you see something. Whereas if you call it something like Battle for Middle Earth, that seems very generic fantasy. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I know Tolkien sort of created a lot of the tropes, but to some extent, it's just like, okay, well, what do you think of when you think of a battle and like Earth? It's just basically a battle in a field. Like, whereas just a ring, like just thinking of rings is like so iconic in your mind's eye, I would say.
Yeah. Fair point.
Yep. There's lots of wonderful ways to properly frame an entire book. So it's really up to the author to best visualize that. Some authors have the title before they even start the book. So it's sometimes backwards. They don't know until they're done. They're like, what was this all about? I don't remember. So, yeah, no, there's lots of ways to use titles, and they're not all wrong. So don't worry. Don't worry too much about your book when you're writing it, and the title is not yet established.
Yeah, don't worry about the title until you're finished, I would say.
Anyway, let's get to point number 3.
From the source material. Their growth is meaningless and contrived. The plots of the MCU are also bad.
All right.
No,
okay.
No, it is not.
So when we talk about Tony's growth, and we understand it because it's from the first film, we get where it's coming from. We know what happens. He loses a friend. He chooses no longer to start this war or fueling the war economy, as it were.
Message coming
we
in.
see a big change from Doctor Strange, how he has to grow as a character, he has to learn magic, he has to discipline himself again, he has to heal his hands, all this process. I don't see how it's contrived when you're talking about magic and you understand the rules of magic, and there's all these, it's not the best magic system, the whatever Doctor Strange went through, but you understand enough that he's smart and he can get things quickly, and
it's a bit OP. It's a bit OP, like Doctor Strange's.
Oh God, yeah.
Then again, the magic that Doctor Strange uses in the movies is like it covers a lot more than what it did in the comics, because that it also interconnects with things like the quantum realm and all the Asgardian magic. It's like they did, like I said previously, they streamlined all of this to like fit that unified system, so that when they have to cross over with each other or they have to pull from one place to do something in another, that it's more seamless, because we've already been told that it's all within that more or less the same realm of understanding.
Ability.
Wibbly
Exactly.
wobbly quantum bullshit.
Basically.
Yeah.
that it's all basically well connected enough that you can just understand it more quickly than if it were on its own.
It's like,
So-
yeah, it's that fucking sciencey quantum
Right.
bullshit. You
So-
know what I mean? Yeah,
So when
that
you're
kind of
talking
stuff.
about
Yeah.
science on a quantum level or magic in a certain way, I would argue every bit of that, just because you're using fantastical elements, are contrived, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It depends how it's done. So some of it makes sense. I admit, when I watched Doctor Strange, not the greatest film, but really fun to watch. I understood the time bit a bit, but not near the end, because I was like, whoa, you're in an eternal loop of dying, and this giant god keeps killing you over and over and over again.
It's an Infinity Stone that he's doing that with,
Right.
and the Infinity Stones are the most OP shit in the MCU.
Right.
Well, were. But
Well, they're the most OP shit until they're not, because I feel like there are times where there's like they you know, like where Thanos should be able to do something with them.
Exactly.
That,
That's
like
the
what he
problem.
did earlier.
Once you get
And now they're not.
well,
Like,
I'm not. Well, inconsistencies
That
are
would
going
be
to happen no matter what. But it's
Well-
like when it's taken into consideration properly,
within
that is
the
how it
same-
works.
Within the same movie, like that's I would say that's contrived.
This is the
Um,
problem with the movie as an idea, because the comic was explicit. This dude is God. Okay, you cannot do anything to him, and that's what happens in the comic book. So
I think you can actually go pretty far with having a character be extremely powerful, because like I still think the original Aladdin story where he has like infinite wishes, like I think that still manages to work.
Yeah. That's there's definitely more limitations on it. We should probably keep going with this video or with the super chats, whichever one.
sure.
comes
Okay,
first.
Alex Halo. And a weird one, Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. Haruhi is not the main character, the guy is. That's fine. That
That is true.
Yeah, I mean, in the sense that Sherlock Holmes isn't the main character of Sherlock Holmes stories, because it's written from the perspective of Watson, like kind of, but I mean it is about her. Like the story is about Haruhi Suzumiya, even if she's not the main character per se.
She's the driving force of most of the stories, and what's his name is just along for the ride because. So
Yeah, even Infinity War itself was like it's the Avengers, but that the Infinity War the movie really is about Thanos. So
Yeah,
So that's totally fine, and there's nothing wrong with focusing on your antagonist. And when you're talking about Haruhi, those animes, it's almost a romance story. It's more or less just a guy in high school going through all these crazy scenarios because the girl he's sort of affiliated with is God. So
I always think of that fucking Nightcore remix of.
Oh, the music? Dollface? You there, buddy?
oh shit,
We lost him.
I'm still here. Damn.
We lost
And
him.
also I do agree with Inquisitor Matthias. Inconsistencies can be forgiven when they aren't offensively broken. That is true. Not all the time, but it is true.
What's the same with plot holes? How
Mhm.
big is the plot hole? How damaging is it? That sort of thing.
Exactly. And that's why I say that the Time Stone in Doctor Strange isn't all that bad, because the Infinity Stones are written in a way where they are supposed to be that powerful anyway,
Right.
most of the time.
Okay. All right, let's keep going. Oh, wait, we got Voice. Hey, Voice, didn't see you there. How's it going? Voice. Sir.
Okay.
Voice.
Yeah.
There you are.
Good day.
All right.
Come out and play.
Are you in the watch together, sir?
I just joined. Yes.
Alrighty.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, you should have the 3 points of bad things about the MCU at this point right now.
Okay, we're gonna
Yes.
press play and hope that everyone's caught up and we're following along. All right.
Nothing meaningful, and all of them rely on contrived plot points that don't make any sense when you think about them.
All right, well, let's slow down here. There are no meaningful changes resulting from film plots. All right, I remember this argument because he was talking about the films where the world doesn't change. And plots relying on contrivances. It's the same argument from the third one.
What the fuck happened there? My internet just fucking shit.
Yeah, we've pretty much proved here that he is dead wrong on this. There are definitely changes from one film to the other, and the later films definitely do prove that point time and again.
I remember he's explicitly said, I'm not going to talk about the snap because that's obviously a huge change. So I don't know why.
Is he talking about a particular film or just like the series as a whole?
Talking about it in general.
Okay,
he showed examples, but they weren't very solid examples, and we sat there going, yeah, he'll bring up like Iron Man 3, and then he'll bring up Infinity War, but that he won't go into detail exactly what's wrong with that. Or if he did, it was kind of like angry.
If I'm going to defend Iron Man 3 for a moment, it establishes his PTSD, which is actually a crucial character driving point for like later films like Age of Ultron and Civil War. His PTSD is what drives his character, and that has consequences on the
that one thing from the Avengers definitely is one of the really big changes for the MCU going forward.
Yeah, and that was really important in Endgame because that's why he wanted to have a family and settle down and everything.
That's right. I remember his argument. He said that they had to make Tony Stark relatable as a family man because the audience were a bunch of lazy, fat husbands or something. You're like, what?
Yeah, and to that I once again say bullshit.
I think we could all understand a man going through some sort of problem in his life where he has a misunderstanding of what it means to be a man or isn't confident anymore or has some trauma. I think we could all understand that. We don't need to be an adult, married, lazy, fat father figure in your life at that point. So,
yeah,
and we can at times he's fought aliens and supervillains and gone to space and everything. He probably wants a quiet father life.
We can definitely all agree that the whole family man thing was basically set up from the very beginning.
Okay.
What, of Endgame or the series as a
from the very beginning of the MCU.
Does he
express
wanting a family in Iron Man 1?
Well, it's trying to do what's right. It's like end the conflict, end all the bad stuff, so that he can just sit down and relax, more or less.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's keep going.
I was at a loss at what's left to critique, so I decided to do something I never imagined myself doing until now. I watched the videos of people that had different opinions than me. I spent a good amount of time sifting through the rants of these inane, arrogant, self-righteous wretches who I have nothing in common.
Wow.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Keep telling yourself that. If you just sleep at night, sure.
I don't know why you felt the need to boast about this. This is the bare minimum when it comes to criticizing anything. Is to look at the outliers and the majority and see what they're saying. It's not something to be congratulated on. You're supposed to do that.
Yeah, it's common fucking sense.
It's also a great idea when you look at people who are contrary to you. Don't start calling them names. Just say, "I listened."
It's a poor taste joke.
At best, yeah. At worst, you've already poisoned the well, and now you're like, "Okay, we know you're biased, sir. You don't like these people, so obviously you're not going to like what they have to say, but you still have to give them the benefit of the doubt." If you're trying to be objective, trying to be critical. So, don't do that.
It's literally debate 101, dude.
Common with. and came up with these points on why they think the MCU is good. 1. Patience in introducing characters and payoff for long waits. 2.
True.
Audiences.
Okay, I think we can agree that's a good thing. You set up something and you pay it off later on, either in the same movie or later on in the series.
Yeah, but he's probably. I'm gonna hedge my bets now, and if I'm wrong, I will hold up my hands that I no longer have and say that I was wrong. But he's probably just gonna say they're all wrong because nah.
Yeah.
This is not true, and I said so, so it's true.
Okay. We have to have specific examples, though, for what he's referring to so we can actually make an assessment. In the second one, this is a, argument from authority. I don't really care what the critics concluded. I care what the critics, how they got to that conclusion. That's where I care. The same with JustTheFacts. I want to know how he came there, not that I hate it, it's bad, let's work backwards and figure that out. I want him to start from the beginning and say, what is this thing? Here's where it screwed up. This is why it's bad, blah, 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 blah. So I don't care how popular the MCU is. I don't care how many movies there are. I want to know how the critics got where they got to.
I certainly wouldn't listen to critics that are in this for just day one views and money, though.
Sure.
True.
Okay, let's keep going.
Audiences and critics good. 3. Consistent tone throughout the movies. 4.
All right, that's kind of important. That's kind of key. Every movie has its own flavor. Now, if he's talking about an underlying tone, there's sort of a comical feeling, I would say, to some of them, especially in Ragnarok, where that's the focus of the feelings of the movie. But there's a brevity, there's a levity to it, rather, which is not all serious all the time. And that could be considered part of the tone. The tone in general is always like serious action, adventure, world-changing, whatever. But
message coming in.
That's how most of these superhero comics are anyway.
Yeah. I would usually tend to refer to the lighter moments more as levity than comedy, because from my experiences, there have been a couple of times where I've said that that I've referred to it as comedy, that people have tried to turn it back around against me. It's like, oh, there's too much comedy. It's like, and I leave it clear, no, it's not so much comedy in the normal sense. It's comedy more so as levity for contrasting with the much more serious moments.
I think some people would say that there's just too much, though. Like, it's just too much of a contrast. In certain serious moments where it's like
with some movies I definitely agree. Some movies I would agree, but with the ones that do count with contributing to the overall story, They do have a decent balance.
When you have Thor Ragnarok Thor go into Guardians of the Galaxy, that almost makes sense because he came from a comedic setting previously, and Guardians of the Galaxy has always been very actiony, silly, kind of fun, yet still being serious. But that's the amazing thing about Marvel movies, is they combine all these genres, and they work so well, even if it's just a little bit here, a little bit there. So Guardians will be mostly comedy. Thor will also be mostly comedy, but then you'll get like, well, I wouldn't say Iron Man is mostly comedy, but things like Doctor Strange is more, well, it's not even a great film, but it's more of a spectacle. And you can throw comedy into that just because it's over the top. You're like, oh my God. And there's lots of moments where he's like, is this for real? Is this really happening? And he's fighting a guy or whatever. So, or the cape acts on itself. So there's all these sort of things that you can connect with that are simple and silly without breaking this whole serious mode of like, someone's trying to kill me with magic. What do I do? So it works, even if the films aren't that great. I admit they aren't supremely entertaining. They're still fun to watch.
Yeah, but in regards to the consistent tone, I think he means like it goes through all the movies. It's not that each movie has a consistent tone, but the entire, like, all the movies taken together have a consistent tone.
Maybe,
but I think that's sort of it's sort of a sacrifice you make for having something feel like they're in the same universe. Because, like, for example, like, as I was saying earlier with Batman, like, I prefer just Batman stories. I didn't really care about crossovers with him with other characters that much. I just like him when it's a story that's written just for that character, and it doesn't have to worry about being tonally consistent with, like, say, Superman. But if you want to have something where it feels like they're in the same universe and that these stories feel like they could be happening in the same universe, you kind of have to maybe tone down some elements of each of the stories so that they all feel cohesive. So it's a sort of what do you call it? There's pros and cons to it, I'd say.
It's a complicated thing when you have so many things going on, especially in the Infinity War movie. So you expect a little bit of chaos, a little bit of bad writing, and lots of people blowing up. So not your typical hero movie, or superhero movie, rather. Anyway, let's keep on going. Jake the Surgeon. I return from filling Renegade Cut with my white-hot anger to his tism nonsense. Good luck. I don't think I have yet to post my comment on his videos yet, but I'll get there. But
what was said?
Oh boy, what wasn't said with Renegade Cut? James Bond is an imperialist, and he is a non-intellectual, and oh god, he's a
so many
misogynist.
things.
Yeah, no, just pick that was the busiest my bingo card ever got. So
was it James Bond would look down on gender studies? He wouldn't take it seriously. And this is because he's an anti-intellectual.
Takes that seriously.
No. But you see, it's because he's an anti-intellectual. but also, so he says all this stuff. He says all this stuff about how anti-intellectualism is this really bad thing, and it's so bad. But at the same time, he says later in the video that arguments from authority are the worst kind of argument, and it's just like
and then he uses
that's what you were doing. That's what you were doing
himself. Then he uses James, and then he says Daniel Craig says that James Bond is a misogynist pig dog.
I don't think Daniel Craig's ever said that, but
Daniel Craig says that James Bond is a misogynist. That's not like he definitely said that.
Oh, well, that was stupid of him.
Anyway, don't worry about that. That's long in our past, guys.
Indeed.
Let's keep going.
Or
well, doesn't want to think about it anymore.
As if that's a good thing.
Wait, okay,
having
relatable characters is a good thing. Okay.
Yeah. Why? It seems like this guy subscribes way too much to a weird warped Nietzschean view almost.
The problem with this point, though,
fully understand it.
No, I don't know why he has this elitist look on things, but he talked about relatability being relatable to the audience, and then he characterized the audience as being the lazy, fat, family life males. So.
Yeah, and again, we mentioned all the way back when we did part 1 that the appeal of the Marvel Universe is since day one, since all the way back in '61, is the fact that they're relatable.
It's as opposed to DC a lot of the time. It's sort of
DC
DC
are the god
more like this, but yeah.
DC is definitely the Nietzsche Ubermensch thing, especially Superman himself.
Marvel's
I think part of the DC is characterized honestly as gods learning to be men, whereas Marvel is men learning to deal with being gods.
That is the meme, but that is the whole meme with that point.
Yeah.
All right.
5, action and special effects, and 6.
There's nothing wrong with having good special effects. We can even say that about The Last Jedi. So you can like a film for those reasons. That's totally fine.
I think the fight scene at the end of Black Panther looks like fucking garbage.
Oh yes, it is terrible.
Yeah, it is definitely on the same level of. It's on the same level as fucking the 2003 Hulk movie. Nothing but CGI. It's like, geez. The rest of the movie, in my opinion, is pretty good. It's just that one thing.
Well, when you have a technology that can control kinetic energy, you're just basically punching a bunch of people with pillows.
It was partly down to just a stupid design choice to have two guys in black suits fight in a dark cave.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first mistake.
Who are invincible. They're like, oh.
That's
They are
the narrative
simply-
mistake.
I mean,
just
I mean,
visually.
we can agree that if that fight was on the little pond, like the waterfall place where the ceremony was earlier in the film, we can agree that would have been a better setting for that last fight, right?
I think it should have been
to bring that whole arc full circle.
Yeah,
Well,
but
the idea would work because having your characters wet would allow you to have like specular highlights on the body armor, so it wouldn't look like this really smooth black surface.
yeah, it just looks so flat.
Exactly.
I think partially. I think one of the major problems one of the major problems is the fact that they wanted to like pull people off of Black Panther and put them onto Infinity War, and that's why most of the CGI in Black Panther looks like dog crap.
That is true. Yeah.
I just feel like they could have done so much just with practical fight scenes, you know? Like, I feel like they could have just... Like, if you're going to have the... either they're wearing the suits and you can't see their face, and just get really good martial artists in there and just have really good choreography.
And that's why I've always suggested, like, have them find a way back to the setting for the coronation from earlier in the movie. Like you said, the water, getting them wet, would have definitely helped distinguish like the design of the suits. It would have helped take the silver and the gold. It would have made that pop out a bit more.
Not even
in terms of the designs. Yeah.
The purple and gold, not the silver and gold. He ditched the silver a while back.
He still has a tiny bit of it, but you are right.
It's mostly black and purple. Those are the primary colors.
The purple's more so. The purple is also to help distinguish for like the kinetic charge.
Patching it through.
I think it's just weird that like Shuri didn't just steal that Black Panther necklace. I wish that she it would have been.
All right, Jake the Surgeon, thank you again. I
should have stolen more of that.
All right, so super chat from Jake the Surgeon before we move on.
I relate to Superman more than a lot of superheroes. In my early school years, my autism and epilepsy made me feel like an outcast, like Clark and his powers. Now that's very unique to the Man of Steel film, where Clark is. I mean, that's a very different take on Superman. So Superman's very scared. His parents are scared. They're all like, no, you can't do anything. You can't show off. You can't reveal yourself. And instead of spinning it positively, like you will only do it when you're ready, it's like you should never do it because the whole world will change and it's up to you to figure out when. So it's kind of like letting your son just sort of stay in the closet, be scared all his life, and not embrace what he is. So
not entirely. If we look at Superman in general, not entirely, but I can see your point on that.
Only for Man of Steel, I mean. The rest of the comics are very different. So,
Man of Steel. Yeah, I think like in regular continuity, doesn't he like Jonathan Kent is still alive? Like he just says
in many mainstream continuities, John and Martha Kent are still alive.
Mm-hmm. But like,
both of them.
And then, like at certain points, he dies when he's an old man, and it's really sad.
Right.
Yeah. Some of the adaptations do keep them both alive because one, a couple of them are kid shows, and two, because it helps to keep them alive just to keep that dynamic intact for when they want to write stories revolving around it, even after he's long since been Superman.
Right. I actually remember the death of Jonathan Kent in the Smallville series just because they combined so many things, like the time travel thing in the first Superman film. Instead of Clark flying around the Earth to turn back time, he goes to the Fortress of Solitude to ask Jor-El to help him because Lana Lang died, and he was so angry like this because of him, because he did it. How could I stop this from happening? And Jor-El gives him this crystal, and he turns back time, not realizing the consequences of his actions caused another death. And it wasn't because of like the crystal had some like negative feedback loop or whatever. It's just because fate requires a death, and that was that. There's nothing you could do about it, and because of that, Jonathan died. And you're like, oh my god! And it's just this crazy series of events in one episode where he saves the woman he loves, but his father, the primary source of him being a man on Earth, is gone, and he realizes what he's done. It's like, holy, like a stupid little show like Smallville pulled off all this drama in one episode. It's crazy stuff. So
same writers as the same two writers as in Spider-Man 2, I should add.
Oh.
Miles, I believe it's Miles Millar and Alfred Goh that did Smallville and then went to do Spider-Man 2.
Oh my goodness.
Interesting.
Well, that is very interesting to know. Okay, let's keep going.
Yep.
The ambition and scope of the project. We're gonna go.
Wait, slow down. Okay. I see nothing wrong with people being ambitious and biting off more they can chew if they can actually swallow. And I see nothing wrong with the quantity versus quality argument, provided there's both. Same thing. So if I look at the Sistine Chapel and I go, holy crap, I look at one painting on it, I go, that's really good. Wait a second, there's 60 more? Holy crap, that's amazing. The scale is and the quality is the same of one of those to 60. So if you can pull it off and you know what you're doing and you've got this 10-year plan, and the quality is the same, more power to you. There's nothing...
If the quality of the overall project justifies the quantity, which for the most part it does.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I see nothing wrong with liking the MCU for that fact, just for being like 10 years long or how many movies that were made. Nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
Go point by point, and we'll end this series where it began, with the conclusion that the MCU was a mistake.
All right. Just let me just comment on that.
A mistake?
Okay. You know how much joy the MCU brought to kids and families alike? You know how much fun they had? You know how many comic book authors out there started writing comics based off the MCU? It's such a creative force.
How many comics gained more attention because they started to take just enough from the MCU to incorporate into the greater Marvel universe?
Mm-hmm.
Like, never mind the money and the fame and the publicity, but just the fact that this was successful.
The impact of it.
The influence. Everyone knows Thor now. Everyone knows Scarlet Witch for whatever silly reason, even though she's nothing like the comic books. Everyone knows all these characters from comic books, which were popular in the 60s and 70s. And all of a sudden, everyone's talking about it. That's amazing. That's such an influence. How is that a mistake to bring joy to so many people? Even if you don't like the films. Even if you're like, I haven't seen them all. I don't care to see them all. But I can respect it for the impact it has on just the world, culturally. That's such a strange thing to say.
Yeah, one thing is to say that you think it's bad. Another is to say that you think it's a mistake. That is, in my opinion, that's too much of a highball, especially for this.
Yeah, it's
for this schlock.
It's like talking about Teslas. The cars. I don't want a Tesla. I think the stock sucks. I don't think I'll make a return if I were to invest in it. But you know what? People love the cars. They love them. They think they're the best thing they've ever bought. So I might hate the company, but the product everyone loves who owns it. So who am I to say you shouldn't enjoy the thing you spent your time and money on?
Yeah, I'm sure Disney and Marvel are crying all the way to the bank, crying tears of regret. It was a mistake. Like they're blowing their nose into
a
fucking handful of.
Same argument.
Yeah, and for anyone that says it's a mistake because of all the copycats, like the DCEU, like the Fox X-Men stuff before they got buffed by Marvel, and it's like Sony trying to do with Spider-Man, or even Universal trying to resurrect the Dark Universe, which was the original connected universe, which the MCU takes inspiration from in terms of the connections. It's like, it's not necessarily the Marvel's fault that everyone else saw the success and tried to copy it. It's their fault for being jealous.
Yeah, like, look at our opinion of Disney or Microsoft or EA. We still buy their products. We still love them. We still bitch about them, but, I'm glad they're around, even though they're the big evil companies. They always have been, so it's like...
Yeah, and I do also remember at one point there was a comparison that I think it was Confused Matthew that compared the success of the MCU to the success of World of Warcraft. The basic gist of it is that the big boy became such a big boy. It became such successful that when everyone else tried, it pretty much failed. And it's like, it's not the fault of the originator, it's the fault of the pretenders.
Interesting.
That's what it boils down to in that.
Yeah, I really don't like Confused Matthew. He is an idiot.
Well, that's its own video altogether, talking about all the shit opinions he's thrown around, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Let's keep going.
The point of patience and payoff, because that's the one I heard the most when I went through these videos. I'll be spending the most time with it because it's the most wrong. A lot of people frame it in terms of Marvel versus DC and point out how many things Batman v Superman introduced.
No.
Oh, hell no.
I don't want to get into DC versus Marvel because who cares? But I have to note that these people do have a point. I mean, Batman v Superman introduced his hero and all his backstory and had him play a pivotal role all in the same film, and Marvel would never do such a heinous thing. Well, alright, but they definitely wouldn't do it twice. Well, okay, but they definitely wouldn't...
What's your point, sir? Keep going.
...introduce an important villain and then kill him off in the same movie.
Well, hang on. Vision wasn't just introduced in one movie, and that he that had been built up to through Jarvis.
Yeah, if you want to consider the existence of Jarvis, like the build up for Vision, then that's something else that's been around since day fucking one.
But even then, what's the problem? There's nothing wrong with a Chekhov's gun firing off in the same chapter or in a later chapter. The fact they know how to fire it off is what I care about.
Exactly.
What is the? I want to know the quality of the round they're firing in Chekhov's gun and why this guy doesn't like the target. Jake the Surgeon, thanks
Pretty
again.
much.
The MCU made 8 B-list heroes like Iron Man as big as Superman. Yeah, I would say on the silver screen he's way bigger than Superman ever was.
That was definitely part of the goal for the MCU to like elevate all the other characters, almost the entire Marvel universe in that way.
Yeah,
they did. That was the goal, and they succeeded.
Patching it through.
Because the stories are actually good.
Yes,
it's very simple. You make a good movie with good characters and good plots, it works out. Wow, what a crazy concept. Spawn Freak. The MCU was a mistake because it made Marvel Comics pander to progressive Hollywood rather than cater to their core audience.
No, I don't think that has anything to do.
That has nothing to do with it, and if it does, that's only a recent development because of bullshit like virtue signaling bullshit that's been around for a couple of years now.
No. Well, I think.
What I mean, it's not. What I mean, it's not from Marvel necessarily. It's more so like the shit that's been happening everywhere because of this damn movement.
Like, I think it goes back pretty far, and I don't think that the progressiveness in comics it like just came about from the MCU. I think it was already happening by the time the MCU started.
It had been happening again. That had been happening since the beginning.
I mean, it was Age of Ultron is kind of a cluster screw, but I really don't care if like Vision, Ultron, and Black Panther were introduced in one movie just to end it. I think that's fine. It doesn't matter.
Well, Black Panther was in a different movie, but
I know.
But your point does stand. I'll grant you that.
I mean, it's better than if he wasn't set up at all and then he shows up at the end of the movie. Like that would be.
It's the same thing with like, is he going to make this argument about 1984 Batman because they kill off the Joker in that movie?
89.
What's your point? Or sorry, 89. Sorry.
Don't worry.
In the very first Batman movie ever, he dies because they didn't want to bring Jack Nicholson back.
Yeah, and in terms of
very expensive. Jack Nicholson's extremely expensive.
Yeah, and in terms of the character, even back then, that was a really massive gamble to kill off the Joker, the fucking Joker, in that first movie.
All right. Tyler Preston, did you know that Smallville continued even after the TV show ended in the comic book? Introduced Batman, the Green Lanterns, Wonder Woman, etc. I did not know that, but I did know that they were publishing a comic. I didn't know how long it went, though. So
I do remember that. I just never got to reading any of it.
yeah, it's the same with not Buffy, but Angel. They continued the Angel stories in comic book format. I recall that.
They continued Buffy as well. It was
Message
Buffy
coming
and the
in.
Angel, and there was a Spike
Patching it through.
comic,
Oh,
and
wow.
there was a fucking Giles comic, I think, as well.
So fans of Angel. I knew lots of friends back then who were fans of Angel. They love the comic actually as well. So, but Smallville I did not know. Cool. All right. Jake the Surgeon again. The failing comics industry isn't just restricted to Marvel. Need I remind you all of Starfire's overweight goth daughter? Oh yeah, okay. Well that's another branch of Marvel. So yeah, no, there's problems all throughout Disney and Marvel with this trying to appeal to other audiences thing, which more power to you if you can make it work, but you're definitely not getting the old guard of fans who are going to buy that stuff. All right, keep going.
Okay, but they wouldn't do pretty much the same thing with the most important villain in their entire series. Okay, you get the point. Marvel movies are just as lazy.
Come on, dude. Like, are you really gonna argue that the only thing was the end credit scenes with Thanos? Really? Are you really gonna pretend like nothing else led up to that?
2 films about him.
Like, really, dude? Like, the attack on New York, it was set up that
Guardians
was...
of the Galaxy. He's also in Guardians of the Galaxy fairly prominently.
Yeah, and it was still a while from between that and Infinity War. So it's... No, you're just wrong.
Others you can think of when it comes to setting things up and giving audiences the context for ensemble films. Marvel films aren't just flawed in terms of setting things up, they're also flawed when it comes to the payoff. A lot of people have pointed out the Infinity Stones as an example of things that show up in many films and their movements between films have real consequences, but let's look into what those consequences actually are. The main consequence of Thor: The Dark World is that the Reality Stone is with the Collector, but does that have any real consequences in Infinity War?
So
it's the location of where Thanos goes.
Where was it before? Where was it at the start of Thor: The Dark World?
It was
where was
in
the reality
a
stone?
random outside of space spot.
Right. So does it not matter a lot that the Reality Stone is in a place that's going to be basically convenient for the Guardians to go get it? Does that not matter a lot for what happens in Infinity War? That they're the ones who go to get that stone?
Yeah, but even if not, it's still a MacGuffin that is serving an overarching plot. It's literally a component he needs to enact his mission or whatever his plan is. What's wrong with that? Whether it has like ridiculous importance or it's like, no, I need this thing just because it's nice to have. You can't have the Infinity Gauntlet without all the stones. So he needs to have it. It's integral to his plot. How is that badly set up? Does he want like a story on each of the stones? That'd be great. I'd love to see that.
But there is a story on almost each of the stones.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, right. Oh, you were being sarcastic. Sorry. Did not pick up on that at all. Well, I think the bigger point is that if the Reality Stone isn't out in space, then where else would it be? Because your only other option is to put it's inconsequential wherever it is if it's not Earth. Because the very reason he doesn't go to Earth immediately is because he goes after the Reality Stone instead. That he happens to know is not on Earth.
Okay.
By power of deduction, because he knows of the 2 stones that are on Earth and sends his forces directly there.
Yeah, I think there's a trope.
So it doesn't matter where it is as long as it's not Earth. It could be on Mars.
Yeah, I think this is
still.
Sorry, this is part of a trope or pattern that I can't remember the term. Was it called Chekhov's Armory or Fridge Brilliance, where everything's sort of like you don't know what's going to happen, but you heard about it previously.
Message coming in.
But the main plot of the
Patch
film
it
you're watching isn't about that thing, but it just so happens to be a part of every film until you get to Infinity War, and it's like, oh, now it matters. They weren't just MacGuffins. They're actually building up to something. I think that's pretty genius. To do that, to have the time and money and resources and directors and writers to all plan that out together, saying, hey, make sure there's a part in the movie where you have the Infinity Stone, okay? It's like, all right. Then you tell the other director.
These things are important.
Yeah, kind of need those. So maybe he's arguing the story of each film wasn't as good as it could have been to introduce those elements, but you can't argue that they weren't there. Jake the Surgeon again.
Yeah.
Thanos snaps half the universe away. Idiot. That is a big consequence, yes, which he did not address. He referenced it, but he didn't talk about it. For whatever reason. I don't know. Anyway.
Not really. No way that this encounter plays out is influenced by them having left it with the Collector. They may as well have tossed it in an ocean on some obscure world and it would have played out the exact same way, but underwater.
No.
These aren't consequences. They're window dressing. And occasionally there are things that get picked up and have real consequences.
I would strongly disagree with that. Window dressing. No, that's not the case.
When you establish a setting and a character that is then brought up again in the next chapter or the next film, people go, "Oh, I know what that is. I've seen that before. I can relate to that."
I kind of have to agree. It could have been anywhere in a pre-established world, though.
I would agree with that.
I do see credibility in him saying, "Hey, it could be that they could have put it on Hala or."
Yeah, but it's important that it's not within range of the Earth characters.
It is important that it's not within range of the Earth, but he is correct in he's correct in saying it could have been in any pre-established area. Like it could have been on Hala or whatever the name of the capital planet of Guardians of the Galaxy is again.
But it couldn't just be. I don't think it could just be anywhere in the Marvel universe. It has to be so that the Guardians are the ones who have to get it.
But then
I think that's
right.
important for the story.
Once you establish
I'm saying it could be on any world that the Guardians already know of.
In the case,
and then to that extent, it would be window dressing.
Right, but in the case of this example of the Collector, once you establish a setting and a character and a certain rule that he has to operate under. Now that thing is locked.
To own them,
yeah, it's locked in place. You have to use that. And if suddenly you find this stone in another planet, another part of the galaxy, you're like, how did it get from A to B?
Is it established how he got the reality stone again? Thor gives
it is. Yeah, Thor gives it to the Thor gives it to Collector. The Collector is looking to collect Infinity Stones. The Guardians of the Galaxy go to the Collector to sell the stone. The stone blows up the assistant, and then they grab the Power Stone and leave, and nothing's ever revealed about the reality stone.
Yeah.
Well, it shows the established location of the reality stone from the end of Thor: Dark World. Yes.
Right. So it's basically we've got a character that ties into the two different groups. That knows him, and the Guardians know him. So there's a narrative through line there. Yes, Thor could have just fucking launched the Infinity Stone out into space and been like, all right, it's out there now. I'm never gonna. But that would have been really irresponsible for him to do. Instead of leaving it with someone that he knows is going to have it under lock and key. You could argue it would make sense to keep it in Asgard, but and I don't have an argument as to why they wouldn't have done that. But there is logic.
Then again, look what happened to Asgard anyway. So,
well, partially it's because they do have an argument for why. It's because they also have the Tesseract, saying that they shouldn't have two Infinity Stones in one spot.
Okay.
Cool. They do account for that. It's partially because like if there's like and that's why Xandar doesn't put Xandar doesn't put the Power Stone in with the Collector. They have it on their own planet, so it's separate from there, so nobody can kind of like grab two at one time.
Real concept out. But for every plot line that gets picked up, there are countless more that just don't.
Cool.
and fall by
Okay,
the
I'm happy
wayside.
with that.
What happened to the Nova Corps? What happened to the Abomination and the Leader? How are the 10 rings from
Hello?
Iron Man 1 linked to the Mandarin?
Smud, you dead?
What's up?
Okay. There's
Wait,
three
is-
distinct reasons for those things.
Sorry, is the video playing? It's not playing on my end.
We're at 303.
Okay, sorry, I assumed we weren't going. Sorry.
Oh.
Alright,
So
please
what?
continue.
Okay, so he said what happened to the Abomination at the end of the Incredible Hulk? That is a universal BS. That is a universal Marvel BS because it is addressed in a short that he's just still in confinement. That's a short. I'm not counting it. The 10 rings related to the Mandarin. There is no connection as of Iron Man 3. There's no connection. It's just made up. Like the Mandarin's a made up thing in the movies. In the shorts, maybe there's something, but that's just the shorts.
I mean, I always assumed that they were going to do something with the 10 rings again before they decided to kill Iron Man off, but...
Yeah. And the Legend of the Rings movie coming out at some point.
Shang-Chi, yeah.
Yeah. What was that other one? What was the third? I remember.
And that
There's
gets
something
picked
really
up,
annoying.
countless more that just don't and fall by the wayside. What happened to the Nova Corps? What happened to the Abomination and the Leader?
The Nova Corps
The
got
Nova-
destroyed off
Yeah, they're
screen.
destroyed.
The Nova Corps, yeah, Xandar was Thanos' first target for the Power Stone.
Yeah.
And he wiped them out completely.
Yeah. So there's no point in going to there, honestly, since he's got it by the end of Thor Ragnarok, because we see his ship at the end of Ragnarok.
What happened to the Abomination and the Leader? How are the 10 rings from Iron Man 1 linked to the Mandarin? What ended up happening to Extremis? I could keep going, but you get the point. This is not a well-planned out masterpiece. It's a hasty...
Yeah, we get the point. The fact that you hate the MCU for no reason.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be some dangling stories or plot threads here and there. But these seem to be very minor gripes than the actual main plot. Like what happens to the Infinity Stones? Why are we following the story of this other guy trying to get the Infinity Stones? Like they're all necessary for you to grasp, and I don't think there's too many holes that we can poke at.
Also, there's the element of people just didn't want to pick up the Extremist storyline. They weren't interested in it. And also, like Iron Man 3's like kind of a black sheep. There's barely any acknowledgement of Iron Man 3 in the other movies. They pretty much ignore it for the most part. There's only a couple.
That I can confirm. Yeah.
Yeah. Because
aside from a couple things that they allude to later on, there is no other mention.
Like Tony's workaholism / PTSD. Those are the main things that are brought up. Otherwise, it's pretty much ignored.
Yeah, a gripe I do have with Iron Man 3 I did enjoy the movie. I'm not saying it's perfect. I do admit to the flaws. There is one gripe I do have with the movie. It's not the fact that he takes off the arc reactor. It's the fact that it isn't acknowledged later. It's like that's a pretty big thing for Tony Stark to do, especially even in the comics, he still has it there. So that is a pretty big change, and it's not like alluded to, and it's not referenced in any way, even though that is a pretty significant alteration to the character compared to the comics.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Spawn Freak, thank you. Look at the state of comics now. It's infested with weirdos who see comics as a stepping stone into MCU Disney Plus or DCEU HBO Max.
Yeah. Yeah, lest we forget the New Warriors.
Message coming in.
Jeez.
I'm so happy that one trailer got so heavily ratioed. It was like
Yes.
like several 100,000 dislikes to like 10, like a few hundred or a few thousand likes. I was like, yay, that deserves to be ratioed.
I for one was happy that common sense kicked in when it was required.
Okay.
Later figured we could use this for the film we're writing right now, and did so. Alright, that's point 1 done. Audiences and critics. As far as critics are concerned, what you need to understand is that apart from me and Armand White the Black, these guys are losers. They don't know what they're talking about.
What was that?
Who?
Well, okay. Now critics on Rotten Tomatoes now aren't worth shit because they just give 90s and 90-ishes and 100s to things that are absolute crap now. But in general, no.
That's a really hefty statement.
Yeah, he's saying just critics in general, and I have to strongly disagree.
All right, let's hear that again.
Undone. This isn't critics. As far as critics are concerned, what you need to understand is that apart from me and Armand White the Black, these guys are losers. They don't know what they're talking about, and their analysis is surface level at best. Very rarely will they dare to rate a big...
Okay, you know what? Even the critics who do a review, they have a giant blog post. I don't think they're all surface level, okay? I'm sure some are, but they're not all like that. Even the fan reactions or the fan reviews, they're not all surface level. They're sometimes very simplistic, but some of them are gigantic. So no. Be specific. Give me a specific critic who's like well known, and we'll look at that maybe.
In terms of TLJ and Black Panther, I think Easy Peasy brought it up in his review, in his either him or Macabre Storytelling, I forget which. But he said like he kind of lamented the loss of objective criticism, where he kind of said like they're mostly just praising the fact that it's inclusive and the fact that it's like it's got visual artistry and that it's really progressive in the politics.
I mean, Black Panther does still stand on its own as a movie than Last Jedi does. Let's just get that out of the way.
That is true. I would definitely much rather watch Black Panther. And I have less conflicted feelings about I have more conflicted feelings than like outright disdain for Black Panther, as opposed to TLJ, which I'm just like, no, that's just crap.
Yeah, fair point.
Yeah, I'm conflicted about Black Panther, to be perfectly honest, but I don't think it's like abysmally awful. I think there's just like slight problems here. There's some problems here and there that I'm just like, partially it's the history buff. It's partially my historic buff that I just like, ow.
Yeah, I can definitely understand from that point of view why you would disagree with some of the things they do in Black Panther, but it overall is still a pretty decent movie.
Do you like the bit at the end where T'Challa summons a spaceship for the local people of America to play with? They say like they're going to start sharing their technology and knowledge with, the modernized Western world instead of the struggling continent that is Africa.
But to be fair,
Wakanda.
Yeah, but to be fair, they do still at least like allude to that a little bit when T'Challa and Okoye come back in Infinity War. They do have a little like quick conversation about that. So it is being continued onward after that point.
Okay.
I don't recall that.
Yeah, before the Quinjet lands on Wakanda in Infinity War, it's like they do have a little bit of a dialogue about that from that decision in Black Panther.
When you were talking about opening up the world, I thought it meant different things than these people. What did you imagine? The Olympics, maybe? Perhaps a Starbucks?
Yeah, Okoye said Starbucks. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they're helping their neighboring struggling countries.
No, I mean, to be fair, at that point, the decision hasn't fully kicked in yet, and we may never know if that decision to like commingle with the rest of the world really will sink in as much as you would expect. But it is still acknowledged.
I think the one thing in Black Panther that is the most like you can have all the sci-fi shit you want, but it's when it's conflicts with how we know people act. The idea that of this nation becoming extremely technologically advanced relative to their neighbors really, really quickly, and then not just taking over fucking everything just seems like ridiculous. Like it seems like anything if that happened where like a nation like in the position that Wakanda's in suddenly became way more advanced than its neighbors, like bro, they're gonna take everything. They're gonna take over the entire
That is something that the movie considers, and that is the whole motivation behind Killmonger. That's exactly what he wants to do.
Why wouldn't they do that during Shaka Zulu? Why wouldn't they do that during the Shaka Zulu era? Shaka Zulu was a giant problem.
They literally, because the way they establish it, they've been more technologically advanced for a long time, and it's just like, come on, dude. I just don't believe it. I don't believe people.
Well, then again, that's not all of them. That's just a minority within the Wakandans, and the only one we see notably of that mindset is Killmonger.
Well, even that, it's just not believable. Like for any group of people, and like historically speaking, to not do that.
It kind of plays into the noble savage trope almost. Where
it's kind of they're not like Europeans
entirely,
who colonized and stuff. It's kind of like, oh no, they're above that, and it's like, come on. Dude.
It's kind of that notion. It's kind of like I've heard that people kind of compare them to like medieval China, where like they were really historically, but China had a lot of internal struggle and horrific wars that happened because. And especially like if there's like a built-in mechanic where you can kill the king in single combat and take the throne, that leads to a giant amount of political instability. They would fall apart really fast.
Yeah. True.
So, and I think that part of it is just that the world building is so intrinsically linked with the plot that becomes a problem. Like if this was just like surface level, like, oh, okay, so this hasn't, like, maybe, like, they got pushed back by other African nations, or even, like, got pushed back by settlers. But even then, like, that's not... Oh, we're going to benevolently and just isolate ourselves and not do anything, even when we could feasibly take over Africa and probably, like, at least Southern Europe.
They could. I think they'd probably get to the Mediterranean, and then there'd be a bottleneck.
It's always a strange argument to see what would you do if you had.
That's racist. The Mediterranean, what? Because they can't swim. That's racist of you.
Okay. Let's move on. Yeah. And I already saw the super chat from Jake the Surgeon. I'm just like, dude, stop.
Based Jake the Surgeon. That's funny.
He said this is why the British need to re-civilize Africa. I'm just like, dude, no, let's not go there.
Well, that would be based, but that implies they civilized them in the first place.
Oh, dude, no, let's not. Okay, no, dude, let's just keep going.
Bruh.
Blockbuster, even when it has fundamental flaws. For God's sake, even Thor the Dark World got mostly fresh, and that movie was just indisputably bad. And for audiences, you can get an audience.
Wait a second. So
still enjoyable to watch, though.
He's saying they're all bad, but that one's like really, really bad. So he has grades of bad. Okay. So we have quality. He has this understanding of quality, but his idea of quality is instead of it being good is bad. So there's layers of quality which are bad. And Thor the Dark World is the worst, I guess.
I'd say Iron Man 2, but
yeah,
we already talked about that.
Jake the Surgeon.
I would agree that Iron Man 2 is very flawed.
South Africa especially is becoming a socialist dump. Okay. I mean, South Africa is one of the more developed ones, but, I mean, if you say so. Let's just not.
It's the most developed, but it's
like I said before, let's just not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For nearly any dumb soap operas, The Third Reich, or even Twitch thoughts, audiences have been found for some extremely.
Oh, come on! No, really? That's what you use? That's just wow.
The Third Reich or Twitch
In
thoughts?
fact, I'd be inclined to say that the bigger your audience is, the worse
Yeah,
your film
but-
will. Most of these films are designed for the lowest common denominator, so they're watchable by anyone, which is good for your bottom line, but it prevents you from going into depth on any one issue, because then you alienate the people that it's not relevant for. So all these broad appeal works end up having...
Absolutely not, dude. Dude,
That is
no.
so dumb. Look at Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is an excellent movie that got a lot of critical acclaim. Audiences love it. And like, I honestly think that Jake Gyllenhaal was robbed of an Oscar nomination. He should have gotten nominated for Nightcrawler. And
I can agree, yeah.
yeah. And also, like, there's like Lord of the Rings swept the Oscars. Lord of the Rings is relatively, like, at least somewhat high concept by comparison to
At least a little bit, yeah.
Because like it's going into a very giant interconnected plot that has 3 distinct storylines going on at once, and they still balance it toward the end and make sure that it comes together in a satisfying.
Yeah.
I don't get where this guy is coming from.
Wait, so well,
Yeah, and even that doesn't compare to the scale of the MCU up to now. So it's
Well, I would agree.
it's no contest either way.
I mean, compare something like
it's 19
Nightcrawler.
versus.
I mean, like it made a lot of money relative to. Damn, I don't have that much money. That's a lot of money, but relative to like even Captain Marvel made like $1 billion or something stupid.
But only because it was released right before Endgame, and people got the impression that
Yeah,
it was
but
important when it wasn't.
That's exactly it, though. So it's not necessarily reflective of being like the most quality thing. And like making something like Nightcrawler, yeah, it'll make a lot of money, kind of, but not relative to a lot of MCU movies. And they're not making loads of money because they're way better than Nightcrawler. You know, it's marketing strategy and stuff. You know,
Also, like it's a family a set of family movies as opposed to a very high concept R-rated movie about a sociopath.
Yeah, that definitely is an advantage of the MCU, is that they've always kept to like the whole family-friendly appeal of the movies without deviating too much.
The width of an ocean, the depth of a puddle.
Of a puddle,
now we have the
wow.
idea that the MCU
I would not
had a
agree with
consistent
that.
tone that was
No.
key to its success. This is true, but
Would not agree with that. Even like Black Panther has some measure of depth in terms of like it's like trying to critique colonialism. That's not shallow. That's
It's trying.
Actually,
it's
It's
trying.
trying
Well,
really hard.
bless its heart. It's trying really hard.
and then there's like
trying so
even like
hard.
Thor Ragnarok. Like with Thor Ragnarok is attempting to take a look at like the imperialism and colonialism. Does it do it well? And that's up for debate. But it still does it. Which is kind of just like, dude, you're really, really digging your own grave here. This is really not at all.
He dug his own grave back in part fucking 1.
Here's Jake the Surgeon. I can understand audiences clapping at pretty colors with no substance, but not all MCU films are mindless entertainment like Bayformers. This is true. There's actually plots to them that all connect, which is nice. So
Yes.
you can.
Bayformers is the lowest blockbuster
Message coming in.
series of all
Patching it through.
time. I can't think of anything like more mindless than the Transformers movie.
Yeah, it's like the only redeemable one is Bumblebee. That's because Michael Bay had the least to do with it.
Because Michael Bay has a number of sociopathic tendencies and clearly doesn't understand how people work.
Well,
Yeah, you can just look at Bumblebee as a like what if scenario prequel of the original G1 from the 80s, and you won't miss a damn thing.
we could say both these films or styles of films are the action blockbuster, popcorn munching summer thing to watch. Is that one of them has a bit more depth, and one of them is just for explosions and fun things happening. So, plus there's a whole other plot line connected one, which is a lot bigger. And that by itself is impressive, but it doesn't have to focus on that every movie, and it doesn't until we finally get to the end of the whole series.
Yeah. All the movies always do just enough to maintain the interconnected nature of the universe, while also balancing out with its own individual aspects per movie. And for the most part, it does that well.
Yeah.
But it's not a... We should have a varied tone with periods of optimism to make the downward spiral of chaos actually meaningful. In a project like the MCU, tone should vary according to the protagonist, so that we get to explore different aspects of the universe through the different perspectives of these meaningfully different characters.
What are you talking about? This is what there's so many films. They have 3 Iron Man films. They go into his character. They focus on it so much.
Remember, you know how like Iron Man and how Robert Downey, fucking hell, I can't think of his actual name.
Robert Downey Jr. Yeah.
No. How Iron Man and Captain America, you know how they're the same character, right? They're like virtually identical in every single way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Just like how what's his face? Just how Aragorn is similar to Robert Baratheon. Totally the same character.
Oh boy.
Yeah, sure. It's like this guy across all these videos is like just basically trying to argue against something that he literally says is exactly what the MCU is doing, and is trying to argue against it as if that's not what's happening.
I think you need to try a whole lot harder to say what the film isn't doing than just say what it isn't doing.
Yeah, then exactly.
Like, you might as well just say the MCU isn't trying to do superhero movies.
Or even Martin Scorsese's really really dumb take of the Marvel movies aren't even cinema. It's just like, Martin, you're not making yourself sound
it's like Mr. Scorsese if Mr. Scorsese said down, you're not feeling well.
Yeah, that's a very strange sentence to say. It's like,
honestly, I think the Scorsese is overrated.
I mean, then again, when exactly did that statement come out from him?
I think it was just before Black Panther or something like that.
Well, it was the same.
Well, then, I imagine the amount of people
coming in.
I imagine the people
being nominated for an Oscar or something.
Yeah.
I thought that wasn't that the
Was it?
context.
Yeah,
Black Panther being nominated for. I thought it was like something in response to him being nominated for an award, and he was like, "Oh, it's ridiculous."
Well, then that just makes him look even worse.
It's very similar to the comment by Roger Ebert. I don't know if you guys remember Roger Ebert when he was talking about video games. He said video games can never be art. And you're just sitting there going, "Okay, are you sure about that, sir?"
Dude, no, pretty sure. When was that? Like the 2000s or the 90s?
It was like, there's some really excellently designed video games with very good plots, like Batman: Arkham Asylum is an example. Same with BioShock.
Well, then again, some of those came out way after that statement, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, almost as if people were saying, "Let's just prove that."
Yeah, let's just do this just to prove him wrong.
Okay, let's keep going. Jake the Surgeon, Simba is just like Joffrey, guys. Okay, well, I was thinking...
Dude, don't bring up that confused Matthew shit. That's just bullshit.
Yeah, I was thinking more or less of typecasting. So if you want to talk about Sean Bean always being in these films a certain way, or Robert Downey Jr. being in his films a certain way, like you could argue that, but not the lore within the characters of multiple films. That's kind of silly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just being the same. If we have just the same light comedy, straight man, funny man over and over and over again, then that's not a consistent tone. That, my friend,
the definition of insanity.
Wait, isn't that point literally from part 1? Like, that's the whole thing about the straight man?
Just said, let's just rewind that.
The same light comedy, straight man, funny man over and over and over again. Then
okay, so you're doing the same thing over and over again. And it's consistent.
That is actually wrong. It's definitely not the case in Black Panther. Black Panther does not do that. There is no straight man, funny man dynamic in that movie.
Oh, I get that, but
also he makes that point while he's literally making the same point he made in part 1 about this shit.
Yeah, but this is the argument. It's in one movie we do the same thing. In the second movie we do the same thing. The third movie we do the same thing, and they're all the same. And you're like, well, that's consistent, isn't it?
Yes. So like, there's the problem
consistent if anything, yeah.
And he's arguing
Rhodey
it's not consistent.
And Sam Wilson are not the same character. They're very different people.
Well, this is what I don't understand. If you're saying these are all the same, but they're not. But wait, what the hell did he even point out? What is his point?
Literally, the only thing similar about Rhodey and Falcon is that they are black men in the armed forces. That's it.
We get to explore different aspects of the universe through the different perspectives of these meaningfully different characters, instead of everything just being the same. If we have just the same light comedy, straight man, funny man over and over and over again, then that's not a consistent tone.
Okay, yes, it is. That is literally the definition of something being consistent. If you keep doing the same thing, the tone is consistent. If I keep playing the same piano piece the same way, that's a consistent piano piece.
This guy seems like he's a very bitter person. I would love to see some Quentin or ATH Chan levels of
he's eating his own argument.
Like, I would love to see this guy get salty on Twitter. I really want to see this guy get salty. It would be so funny to see some of his BS.
But he's now tearing apart his own argument because he just claimed that nothing's consistent tonally or character-wise. But then
even
he's complaining that they're doing the same thing with characters over and over again. So I don't
doing the same thing
with either of those, but
but it'd be shit. It would be utter shit, but it'd be consistent.
Oh dear.
But it's not. They're not doing the same thing. That's the thing.
Like, Captain America, the first Avenger, doesn't have what he is saying factually.
So the argument, the argument is that he wanted to see other aspects of different characters, but because the jokes and like the straight man, funny man routine is in all the films, you can't get that. And I'm like, that's just a style of comedy. That doesn't mean the characters who are pulling that off are the same. That's a very strange take. It's like saying Abbott and Costello, someone else does Abbott Costello routine, and they're the same. It's like, no, they're not. There's plenty of straight guy, funny guy comedy routines over the years that have been completely different. Like Who's on First? I don't get it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like using a certain style doesn't make you the same as the people that made it.
It's like an impersonator of like Donald Trump. There's been so many over the years, and yet they're all different.
Exactly.
My question would be, like, Gigaman, out of the Falcon and Captain America, who's the straight man and who's the funny man? They seem like they're very, very similar in terms of their like method.
It's like they are very much evenly written. They can both be both. They both joke around and they're both serious. But it's the execution that makes it work.
Here's Jacob Surgeon again. Rhodes and Sam are the same, Dunn. They're black after all. What? I am Sam. I'm playing the black man. My character is black. Oh.
So funny.
It's crazy because it's crazy how there's only one black actor, but they managed to get him to play all these roles. It's fucking crazy, man. How did they do it?
I guess next he'll be saying that black people are interchangeable with Ewoks because they were too spineless to put them in.
Oh, oh boy.
That, my
Ironic visual take that I've heard from Quentin.
Then there's relatability. I wasn't going to talk about this that much because I've already covered it, but it's been brought up by so many people that I just have to comment.
The Infinity Saga is our reality.
That gets me
I would
every
disagree
time. The MCU's characters
a
are
lot.
relatable to the average person, but the problem is that the average person just isn't that interesting. Strip away his billions and his iron suits, and Iron Man is just the asshole that smokes all your weed. Relatability hands down everything interesting about these characters because a hardened career criminal for Ant-Man just isn't relatable enough. It has to be sanded down to Robin Hood style crime so that
Wow.
You like advocating for Walter White style personification in all.
When I take away Tony Stark's genius, yeah, he is just a guy who'd smoke all my weed, I guess.
Yeah, like Tony Stark is not just average, just an average person in the MCU. Not like neither is like Doctor Strange is definitely not just he's just an average person. Like no, he's like way big fucking gigabrain, like way above the average.
Yeah, that was a joke in,
you know?
in the Avengers film. He's like a billionaire playboy philanthropist.
Yeah.
Like, take away the suit, what am I? It's like, yep, you're all those things.
But I think like it's weird that he's saying
like what did he say? Like what else did he say? Like Iron Man's the guy who smokes all your weed. Who else did he bring up? Just
Ant-Man. He's saying they're making him into like a sanitized version of a criminal rather than
he's
having
technically a sanitized. He's a sanitized criminal in the comics. He's only stealing because his daughter is sick.
Yeah, but I don't know. But it's weird though because he's saying like having a character that does immoral things that you wouldn't ever do doesn't mean they're not relatable. Like the character of Walter White, even though he does like horrible things where he's like, oh, I would never do that. I would never even think of doing that thing. He's still relatable in a lot of ways.
He slowly goes down that road paved with good intentions.
Well, kind of, but even just the idea of wanting to do things that, and then something happens in your life where you have less inhibitions and sort of wanting to do things that you wouldn't normally do. I think, but it's like you can have a character be really immoral in a lot of ways, but still be relatable. So I don't think it's mutually exclusive that he should be a worse person and then that would make him less relatable.
Another problem is basically like if Ant-Man is a hardened criminal, why is he participating in helping Hank Pym steal the Pym particles?
Money.
So, but then, like, why? If he's motivated solely by money, why wouldn't he just report it to Darren Cross and say, "Hey, here's this Ant-Man suit. Here's the stabilized Pym particle. Give me $1 billion." He's like, "Sure, pay off everything. Here you go."
Message coming in. Patching it through.
All right.
Well, maybe
it fall apart.
We're sort of getting into like writing like a theoretical movie, but I guess it would be like he could do that, or he could get way more by doing this heist. Like there's a potential for way more, even though it's more risk, and then that would be the sort of crux of the movie.
Okay, I'm back. We're talking about what? The Endgame heist?
No, I'm talking about like Ant-Man's character in general.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
If you take
like,
away the
be all about the money and have the plot be cohesive. It seems like Hank Pym is not as rich as Darren Cross.
No, hell no.
Darren Cross is pretty freaking rich. It seems like he's shunted Hank Pym to the side, and Hank Pym's kind of just living off of like the interest of his stock shares.
I mean, let me just say this about Hank Pym. I never heard anyone complain that they switched Hank Pym out for Scott Lang. I mean, first of all, Scott was Ant-Man at the time in the comics. And it's like, Okay.
A lot of people hate Hank Pym because he's a wife beater.
Yeah, but there's never been any official confirmation that that's why they switched him out in the movies. But
No,
if that were the reason, then yeah, that's definitely something to consider.
I know. That was kind of like a lot of people like at least like Blockbuster Buster cites that as one of the reasons he hates Hank Pym.
Yeah, but if I'm not mistaken, that was decades ago that he hit Janet. That wasn't it. He was Yellow Jacket at the time.
Yeah, like he has a really bad personality disorder, as I recall, where like
that is part of the I know that is part of the reason why Ultron exists in the first place.
Yeah.
All right, Jake the Surgeon, take away the suit. A Tony is someone who succeeded at turning his life around and used his fortune to make up for his wrongs. Get bent over by Tyrone. Oh boy.
What?
Get bent, sucker.
I don't know about the get bent over by Tyrone thing, but for everything else, Jake is right about that. It's just plain and simple. Yeah, he's trying to make up for what Stark Industries ended up doing behind the scenes, and it's like, yeah, he's trying to rectify the mistakes of the company.
So maybe Tony might smoke all your weed, but then he'd be busy, running his business as well. So he's that good.
And stopping some foreign terrorists on the side as Iron Man.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, just whatever on the side. Who cares?
Yeah. Okay, moving on.
Crimes will find it okay. If the character were less relatable, maybe some of the worthless scum would stop watching, but maybe that'd be worth it for the artistic value.
I don't get this less relatable. Okay, let's stop talking about this. This is so
Disney
dumb.
Cares about art.
Again, it's like this isn't helping you at all, dude. This basically amounts to you insulting the audience of the MCU.
I have never heard
without any justification for that statement.
Your character's
How
too
is
good.
Captain America relatable to the plebeians? Captain America is a solid gold person who would never do anything wrong.
I mean, that's how he's written, but that's not what he actually is.
Message coming in.
That's true, but like he is like a good, like solid through and through good person who he's very much like Superman in a lot of ways.
Well, even then there is one point in the movies that proves that he's not as goody-goody as you would expect him to be. And it all has to do with Thor's hammer. Because yeah, he knew who killed Tony's parents, and because he was withholding that, he couldn't lift the hammer. Supposedly, he couldn't lift the hammer because he had the guilt of, the shame of knowing that and not telling him yet. At least that was the theory. Yeah, that was the theory going around at the time of why he couldn't lift the hammer, why he only budged it, if you recall.
I was thinking he was just
Joss Whedon eventually confirmed that it's just he didn't want to hurt Thor's ego. But before that, the theory was that he was guilt-ridden because he knew who killed Tony's parents and didn't tell him. That was the theory before Joss Whedon confirmed that he didn't want to, for Thor's sake.
The only thing he knew was a vague flash that of a newspaper saying that they died in a car accident. There was no confirmation that he said Hydra killed Tony's parents.
Not at the time, but in hindsight, you could make the implication is there. Not entirely, but a little bit of it. In hindsight, I realize, but
all right, Jake the Surgeon. Tony would replace your weed with some of the good stuff. Well, maybe he has some imports. I don't know. He knows where to get it.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
He'll smoke all your weed on principles. Like, no, you're not smoking that anymore. Here's the
Disney cocaine is. We know that Disney cocaine is everywhere.
Ooh.
There's probably a whole lot of good stuff where Tony's from.
All right.
All right. Okay. Let's move on.
All right. Last point: action and visual effects. A lot of people point to this scene from Iron Man 1 as their example, but that was 12 years ago. Here's Infinity War, and this suit looks liquid, it looks weightless, it looks unreal. The aliens in this scene look more real than it.
Yeah, it's called nanotech, dude. That is literally how it's portrayed in a lot of fiction.
Nanotech is.
it. Let's
Oh,
examine
sorry,
this.
sorry.
No, go for it.
Oh no, sorry, it was done. Go ahead.
No, you're not done. He's done.
He's done talking.
No, I already said my point. It's like,
Yeah.
go ahead. If anyone has to
Examine
say
this
anything
in
else, then
detail. Cap versus Cap in Endgame. Even a cursory examination will show this isn't a good action scene in terms of being able to follow what's happening. What purpose does this shot serve? We can't see anything from down here. Why is the camera shaking here, and here, and here? Compare it with this one action scene from John Wick. Every shot has the action in full view, and that.
All right, so we went from CGI to camera angles or shaky cams. I don't think the shaky cam's that
Like-
bad, actually.
going from CGI to just basic filmography.
The shaky cam is not that bad. Have you seen Alex Cross? Alex Cross.
I mean,
makes...
yeah. You want to know a really bad example of shaky cam? I know I'm the only one who's seen this, but I don't give a damn. It's Power Rangers RPM. The shaky cam in that show is absolute jank.
That fucking takes me
Patching
back.
it through.
Yeah, but it is just out of place as hell
Well,
in that season.
I will see that.
There is no point for there to be that much.
I will say,
Message
go
coming
watch
in.
Quantum of Solace.
Patching it through.
And if you
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, that too. That too. That's a bigger
That's
example.
terrible.
I've heard nothing but bad things about that movie, Shaky Cam.
it's crazy. It's one of the longest intros in a Bond film for action. It's just you're just blah. I can't watch it.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Let's keep going.
Okay. No, it's like this from Tyler Preston. I can definitely confirm. Hank Pym's version in the Ultimate Universe was way worse. Yes, it was. While 616 Hank fails incredibly guilty for what he did, Ultimate Hank is basically a psycho. Yeah, because pretty much almost everyone in the Ultimate Universe was a fucking psycho.
Yeah, they're all crazy.
Hank, 616 Hank, yeah, I will grant that they did eventually write him in a way that he does regret what he's done, and he wants to make up for it. Meanwhile, Ultimate Hank is irredeemable as hell.
Yeah.
Here's Jake again. The machine looks artificial. Imagine my shock. Well, CGI is not perfect. Let's just give it that much.
Yeah. And also, I agree that the RPM is outstanding, but the shaky cam was just
Message coming in.
too bad.
Patching
It was
it
too
through.
much.
It's no Power Rangers in space, but I mean, it's okay.
It's like, yeah, it did try hard so bad to be like Power Rangers in space, especially in the second half. It's not as good, but it's still pretty good.
To me, the in space is that's my season. That's my
I can agree that's definitely where Power Rangers peaked. That is the peak.
The theme song is
All
so
right.
fucking good as well. For one that isn't
Yeah.
just the original one, like the in space theme song is
Oh,
so
okay.
fucking good.
Yeah. Okay, now let's just move on. Now let's move on for real.
The camera doesn't shake it up, barely even moves. We can only imagine what this shot would look like with the Russo brothers directing it.
No.
No.
That's
Okay.
That's just as simple as they didn't choose to do it.
Also,
So-
Endgame doesn't really have that much shaky cam in the final battle. It's pretty,
Yeah, almost nothing.
seamless.
Almost
And
nothing.
the main reason why they're doing that is because they don't have this two Chris Evans. They have to really film around the fact that they don't have two Chris Evans.
Yeah, they can superimpose his head onto the stunt actor opposing Chris Evans in the filming all they want, but it is a result of how they did the scene. Nothing else.
All right. Jake the Surgeon in space. Wait, sorry. What? Jake the Surgeon. RPM is outstanding. How dare you, good sir? Oh, all right.
And space is great for overrated.
It's just in space is pretty good. It's overrated, but it's good.
I don't think it's not overrated. I think it's pretty fucking good. It's
Got some good stuff. Just from watching Linkara's review of it, I've this has got some good story stuff in it.
yeah.
All right. Oh, we're 3/4 done. It's amazing. Let's keep going. All right, we get it.
And now we arrive at the last point. The idea that the MCU is to be applauded because there's nothing else like it. No cinematic universe that has multiple franchises crossing over in one meta-narrative. This is pretty much correct. And the fact that the MCU has such a magnificent structure makes it so much worse.
Wait. Okay, he admits it's unique and special, but because of that, it's bad? Because it's big?
I think he's it would be better if it was
a waste
good
opportunity. I think he's saying
no. I think
opportunity. I think that's what he's about to say.
I don't think so. I think he's just saying like it's not a good idea to make a big like this many movies in a franchise with all these different characters is just not a good idea on its face, and that it would just be better if they were just individual focused just on each individual character, and it wasn't trying to make some big overarching story.
I've actually seen this video, so I think that is actually what he's going to say. I think that's confused Matthew's review. That's confused Matthew's take that he hates the fact that it's a conjoined universe. He thinks that is stupid, and they should have just focused on the individual stories.
Yeah.
Message coming in.
I'm kind of dubious on it
through.
myself. Like I'm not like when I actually think about what I actually enjoy watching, it's normally not things that are interconnected with all these different things. You know, it's like,
I don't want to watch WandaVision very much. Neither do I want to watch The Mandalorian. I'm not very interested.
Yeah.
I just kind of want to wait. Like, if it does come out, I want to wait till like it all comes out so I can just binge it in one sitting rather than waiting. So I'm just gonna wait for a while. My perspective.
All right, Jake the Surgeon. There are 3 peaks in Power Rangers era in space, time,
Message
force,
coming in.
and RPM.
Patching it through.
Oh.
I guess I can't really remember Time Force that well. We're gonna need to have a fucking Power Rangers stream at some point.
Something I know nothing about.
I've seen mostly Linkara's History of Power Rangers, but I have seen Ninja Storm, Jungle Fury, and Dino Thunder in their entirety.
Yeah, so. I saw it like in space and the original ones, because like the original Power Rangers, Zeo in space, and I think Wild Force, because that's the one that has the big episode with all the Red Rangers in it, where they all come together.
All right, a topic for another day, I suppose, because I don't know what you guys are talking about. But okay, cool. Got some Power Ranger fans in the chat. That's cool.
22 film epic characters that already have great stories written out for them deserves better than all the flaws we've documented thus far. A massive saga like the MCU deserves good characters, good plots, and good themes. If it had just adapted the wonderful characters that were already written for it, if it had featured good plots with real stakes, and it had avoided the basic mistakes.
Real stakes.
Wow.
Good
plots. How would you be able to...
Half the universe disappearing isn't real stakes.
Also, how exactly are you going to adapt the comics straightforwardly? You can't do that. It is nearly impossible. You need a TV show with hundreds of thousands of dollars, with millions of dollars of dollar budgets per episode. Like, it would make Game of Thrones look like The Room.
See, this is why you have fucking animation, you know?
Yeah. But the thing is, animation don't pull in them big bucks.
That is
especially not 2D. Especially not 2D animation. That's why it's been relegated to Netflix and other streaming services.
And anime.
Just ask the Japanese to do it. There you go. That'd be fantastic. Just get a crazy studio. Here is a 24-part epic. Can you please make a year-long animation called Infinity War? It's like, what's that? I have no idea.
What is that? Can I interest you in these big-titted ladies as well?
Oh my god. Very popular over here.
The only people who'll fund it are a hentai studio. They're the only people who will give them funding.
Oh boy.
Basic mistakes time and time again. It would have been a once-in-a-century media phenomenon, but we lost that because of laziness and profit-seeking, and we'll never
All
be.
right, yeah, come on. That's just if you think people on the Marvel movies are lazy, you're an idiot. If you think they're just seeking profit, I mean, come on. They made almost 20 movies.
Ryan Coogler loves the project that he was working on, and he put a lot of effort into like both the research. I think that he updated the comics in certain aspects, like taking out the fact that Black Panther's a polygamous dude who basically enslaved a bunch of slave women. I think that that's actually a really good update. And like he put a lot of effort into the color themes, as well as like the thought of like what Black Panther should be about. A whole lot of things. That is not lazy. And I like Ryan Coogler quite a bit. Like, I will never say a bad thing about Ryan Coogler. I will say crap about Ryan Johnson and David Benioff all day, every day, all 365 days of the year. But I will never say anything bad about Ryan Coogler.
All right. Well, I think we can admit, whether we like the films or not, there's a credible amount of effort and artistry put into these things. And yes, at the end of the day, it all comes down to whether they made money so they could make more, but that's any product or service you make. So that's not really an argument. That's a whole bunch of artists together to make something good.
I'm not just writing books to like write books. I want to actually make a career out of it because I need to eat.
And you have to understand that you can't just write anything and hoping it'll sell. You have to actually think about making entertainment that people want. And you're like, how do I do that? What sells? What's good? Oh, why is it good? I'll figure out what makes quality work.
Mm-hmm. Miracle they managed to get so many actors to stay on for so long, and even if we got another miracle, it'd just be compared to the MCU endlessly. Our one chance for a massive many-film epic has been lost, thanks to the work of Disney. I once said that the MCU
I mean, it still exists, so it's not lost.
Like, how exactly are you going to improve it?
And copying one from the comics doesn't mean it's going to work.
Yeah, for sure. There's no way.
Like the comics don't really take a lot of growth into effect just by virtue of the medium.
There's way too much. There's way too much content in the comics to translate into any different medium. It's like going from books to comics, then comics to film. Maybe there's a miniseries on TV you can do, like a low budget one. But that would not be anywhere near as entertaining and fun and crazy as the movies would be. It would be pretty much it would be a Smallville, really. If Smallville was 10 years, 10 seasons of drama between high school Clark and adult Clark as he learned to become Superman. And throughout that entire time, he never wore the outfit. There was a saying in the show, no flights, no tights. So there were scenes where Clark was his alter ego who was flying, but he never actually wore the outfit. He never.
Yeah, not once did that show ever need to show him as Superman, because it was about his journey to becoming Superman. Hence why it ends with him having the suit for the first time.
Right. So you can do things like that in a very specific way, but you can't do it with like the Infinity Gauntlets comics, or I don't know, X-Men could work, but they tried that with Generation Next. I remember that attempt. Was it the late 90s too? Yep.
It wouldn't have worked.
Live action of, I don't know if you guys read Generation Next. It was a comic book series. where they couldn't translate all the
I've
characters.
heard of it.
Yeah, I actually bought it because I know it. I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But the live action was like, okay, we can't do Chambers, so we have to make him a Scott Summers like guy. We can't do Skin, so we're gonna do something else with her. Like they had to fake a lot of crap. Husk. They couldn't do Husk, so they had to change her up. They did do Skin, I think, but there's a lot of special effects they couldn't pull off. A lot of storylines they couldn't continue, and there's just too much stuff. There's too many things going on. And you could argue X-Men comics, or the Marvel brand, is pretty much a giant soap opera because it has superheroes and big drama and world-changing events.
Yeah.
But it doesn't translate well. It doesn't look right, especially when you start having Wolverine with yellow spandex and goofy-looking masks like from Jean Grey.
But it did eventually come to the point where people did want him to put it on.
I know. It
I think
wouldn't look good,
especially with Wolverine. Even in the comics, you're like, this does not seem like the personality of someone who would unironically wear this. You know, like he seems like so no nonsense, and then he just wears this, and you're like, really? Like,
yeah, but at the same time, they crafted him in the comics in such a way where you just accepted it, for as nonsensical as it may be.
I think honestly, like X-Men Evolution has the best iteration of the original Wolverine costume. It's actually like, rather than being bright yellow, it's a much more subdued orange.
That is one of his better costumes besides the yellow one. I will.
That was a good show. I like that show.
It was.
But it's definitely not it is definitely not an example of a one-for-one adaptation. There are definitely a lot of things changed.
No.
Like Apocalypse is, as far as I am aware, Apocalypse is not like he is in X-Men Evolution.
No, he's fucking not. But they still made the attempt to make him work, and in my opinion, they made him work.
Yeah, better than the movie.
Definitely better than the movie. I was just about to say.
But that's probably because like Bryan Singer's not that, like, it's very much past his prime.
All right. Oh boy, we got less than a minute. Whew.
Insult
I'm ready.
art itself. But considering what a momentous loss this really was, one could even call it an insult to mankind itself. A middle finger to the planet from the Disney Corporation.
We've reached the part where some pithy comments must be made, I guess.
Is this like the super fan from the comics going, if only the movies were like the comics, it would be good. You're like, that is not technically possible.
If Guardians of the Galaxy were accurately represented, Yondu would be what is he? A like Native American bow and arrow toting dude.
I doubt Disney would have approved that.
Yeah, I'm okay with him being a redneck stereotype played by Michael Rooker. I'm okay with that.
Also, the arrow that works via whistle command is just so fucking cool.
Yeah, it is really freaking cool.
And it's based off an...
He could probably beat Galactus, Thanos, and even Shaggy. Such an overpowered weapon.
Well, the fact that it's attached to his cranial upgrade, which is basically a punk rocker haircut. She's like, yeah.
I'm like, heck yeah, baby, that is awesome. Keep doing more.
Is Galactus going to happen at some point in the MCU? Are they getting to that?
Maybe.
They would definitely have to announce. They would have to do the Fantastic Four first, because while Galactus did Galactus did eventually become an all-encompassing aspect of the whole Marvel universe, he started in Fantastic Four.
Yeah. Well, I always remember him with Silver Surfer. Yeah, I always associate him with Silver Surfer more.
That's because he is Silver Surfer's boss.
Silver Surfer is his herald.
Yeah.
In most versions.
The problem is Silver Surfer is basically an OP character who's just annihilates everyone. So,
but what was I going to say? I was going to say something. I can't remember. I forgot.
One thing I'm saying is on TikTok. I'm like, why is why is there a transvestite Chang from Community in a TikTok thing?
What?
Oh dear. Anyway, thanks, Dunn, for that imagery.
What? I have no idea what you're talking about.
You don't want to. Anyway,
Wang from Transformers 3 in a dress.
I don't know who that is, but okay.
Yeah, let's end it there. Jake the Surgeon, I demand to be on a Power Rangers stream, or I'll find Smud and blast his my maple truck, with this Pringles can. What are you talking about?
Syrup, maple tree.
I mean, on the off chance that some idiot on the internet tries to compare Power Rangers to the MCU, maybe I'll put that into suggestions.
Oh God. Oh boy.
You never know. People are definitely that stupid.
Suggest some Power Rangers videos.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind.
Those are really rare. I would have to go really searching for.
Yeah, you don't see them.
Same here.
But if there's any interesting ones to cover,
the only ones I'm aware of are Linkara's History of Power Rangers one, and for the most part, he's actually not an idiot about.
Well, yeah, because he's
free
and what the fans thought at the time and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's a longtime fan, and he really deep dives into the good and the bad. It's really gives his own opinion without lording it over anyone, which I can respect.
It seems like his statement that Megaforce and Overdrive are the worst seasons.
They are. They are.
Yeah,
they are.
Right. Here's Tyler Preston. Remember
Samurai being a close third.
Remember Iron Man Armored Adventures? No, I don't actually.
That one is that the 90s? Is that the 90s one or the CG one from the 2000s?
The CG one from the 2000s. That's the CG one
I've
from
seen,
the 2000s.
Okay, then if that's the case, then I've seen very little of it.
Huh.
All of it. It's kind of interesting that they basically make the Mandarin the same age as Iron Man.
They do make. In the comics, they are the same age, visually at the least.
Yeah.
Visually,
and there's and the kid is not Tony. I don't see that kid as Tony Stark. I see him as a Spider-Man. He's very much like Spider-Man in a lot of ways.
I see him as an annoying little shit.
The one and only show that is actually good about what if this superhero was a teenager is Batman Beyond, without question.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely. That's because Batman.
That literally, and for those who don't know, the Warner Brothers literally wanted Bruce Wayne as a teenager, and then Bruce Timm just decided to make it a different character in the future.
It just made it so much better.
He made it work in general. It's I never thought that show would work by the time I started watching it. It's
fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a great show.
Yeah.
All the Batman, I'd say almost all the Batman animated TV shows are great. So.
Almost the entire. It is part of the DC. Well, one of them is part of the DCAU, and that speaks for itself.
I can't think of a bad one.
Batman Beyond is in the DC.
Brave and the Bold is a bit too hammy for
Batman
me.
Beyond is in the DCAU.
Is it?
Yeah. There's cameos from Talia. There's Talia al Ghul from Batman is in it, and also the Justice League appears, including Superman.
Huh.
Beyond is actually the first appearance of the Justice League in the animated universe. For those who didn't know.
Oh.
They tease about, it's been years since Bruce was on the team and blah blah blah, and basically to that extent. And then after that, they aired the Justice League show as a response to that episode.
And they did have a Batman Beyond episode in Justice League Unlimited.
The epilogue to the entire DCAU, I might add.
Was it the end? I thought that was a different episode.
It is supposed to be the very last episode of a viewing of the entire DCAU. That is supposed to be the end, the send off to the whole universe. They did a third season after that, but that's only because the show was so popular that they ordered another season just to capitalize on the popularity. But Epilogue is supposed to be the very end of the animated universe.
Alrighty.
Very subdued ending too, where they finally get rid of Brainiac and Lex Luthor. Then they have an entire series about Lex Luthor
and
wanting to get back with his beau Brainiac.
With his bro. And let's be honest, most of us, I mean, at least some of us here know Amanda Waller from DCAU. If it weren't for that, then pretty sure she'd still be a really obscure character.
Yeah, and pretty much the actress playing her is pretty much Amanda Waller. And I'm kind of sad that they didn't ever cast her in any of the movies.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think they might have written that for her in mind. I think I might be misremembering.
Yeah,
or maybe she was just that good. I don't know.
Yeah, she is probably just that good.
Yeah. I'm fine either way with this, whatever the reason is.
All right, we got less than 20 seconds. Let's do it.
I'll do next. Try and make another video surrounding what we've heard about Halo Infinite, and after that, there are many paths open. These are just some of the ideas I've had.
What we've heard from Halo Infinite, which is pretty much nothing.
If you leave one, but only if you like and subscribe.
Sure.
And hit bell button. Bye.
Alrighty, that was
what?
That was enough. That was enough for my fill for this month, and maybe this year. I don't know. Maybe he'll have other videos we have to go through.
He doesn't have anything else.
Okay.
Barely has anything else. They're mostly just like little clips and nothing.
I guess if he wasn't so emotional, it would be boring. But maybe if he was more, I don't know, analytical with his references and made more sense than just say, "I hate this because it does this," and you're like, "Why? Why is that hateful? What's wrong with that?"
And actually show that, and actually show that you've watched the movies instead of just blindly assuming certain things that the movies themselves very much disprove in regards to your argument.
Show your work a lot better than you show it here.
Well,
show some more references.
He did actually reference things, but they weren't good arguments. So he's like, "Hey, look at this thing." You're like, "Ah, I see it. Yes. What about it? Oh, I don't like it." It's like, "Well, why?" Because it does this. It's like that. Why do you hate that? That makes sense. It's good. That's a good thing. It makes sense. When you criticize something, you need things to make sense. And you may not like the end result of the what it makes sense of, but tell us why that's wrong. Where's the lack of understanding? See, I don't care that he hates it. I care why. I said this before. I care how he gets to that conclusion. And
which he honestly never really showed.
He just had a lot of hot air and a lot of anger, and I wish there was much more to it. He had 3 parts to this series. He could have done a lot more detail and wonderful references that we could see. Oh yeah, here's a problem with the film. This action scene doesn't work. This camera angle's garbage. And he just says it's shaky. It's like, it's not that shaky, buddy. It's fine.
It's kind of the epitome of like giving an answer, but the teacher asking you to show your work, and you don't have any.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much.
I know all the math. I just didn't bother to do it because it's stupid. It's like, what? Still got to do the homework, buddy. Anyway, wish the arguments were better. Wish the references were better. Wish he had more shtick than just this is bad and you're bad for liking it. The whole thing about the fans being relatable does not make any sense to me.
and that you're nihilist for liking comedy.
What is that about? Why?
Yeah, I know. It's like, what the hell were you thinking when you said that?
Yeah, it's just bizarre takes. Very entertaining though. It was strange to interpret. Didn't know where he was going with half the time, but. Yeah, no, I
gave us plenty to talk about, despite the length of these videos.
That's true. It wasn't that bad though. We've seen a lot worse, so this is okay for me.
Yeah, and Maggie May's worse.
Well, no.
I'm looking forward to her Lord of the Rings and queer fantasy review.
Oh God, I can only imagine how you guys are going to do that.
Why, Maggie? Are you like? Do you want to be in film so badly? You just want to talk about your fantasy of the film? And then Legolas goes over to Gimli and says, "Hey man, how long is that beard of yours? Gimli's like, it goes down to my knees.
It's like you. It's like you have my bow and my axe and my huge cock.
No, and my huge stiffy. That's it. Aye.
All right.
Dwarf men and dwarf women, you can barely tell them apart. It's like, it's the beard, right? No, it's the massive cock.
So I guess yours.
Insert Roblox. Oof here.
I guess they disseminate through the arse. So interesting.
Anyway, thanks guys for tuning in. Do appreciate your time. All the super chats, all the chatting. That's great. Thanks for almost a full house. You guys were great for sharing the laughs and sharing the analysis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Voice, for popping in. Always nice to see you.
Indeed.
Of course, very welcome.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get some different videos this time. Not about Marvel. That'd be great. Great change of pace. And yeah, we can only take one topic at a time. I think Star Wars really showed us that we got to stretch. We can't stretch it too much. We gotta mix things up a bit. So Marvel, Star Wars, other things.
Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Game of
We
Thrones.
could totally do that. Yeah, exactly. So thank you guys for tuning in. Keep these suggestions coming. Sorry? What was that?
Republicans video on why the Battle of Winterfell is historic. So awful.
Oh, okay. Those are fun to look at. Battle analysis is always good to check out. There's lots of those on YouTube, so that's kind of fun to go through them all and pick apart them, which one's the best. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys real soon, and have yourself a great evening. Good night.
Excelsior.